Yeah.
I call the Township of Aleppo workshop meeting of October 14th, 2024 to order at 7 PM. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
President Jones.
Present.
Vice President Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Dara.
Present.
Commissioner Richard.
Present.
Commissioner Haluka.
Here.
Solicitor Jewett.
Here.
Manager Patterson. Here.
This meeting will be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. Do I hear a motion to approve the September 16th, 2024 legislative meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Old business. Manager Patterson, would you give an update on the 2025 budget?
Yes, the update is I'm working on it, waiting for a few more pieces of information. There's, the kind of some annual things that, contributions that we get to come in, and you will have the full draft for the November workshop meeting. But short of that, before that, I'll be meeting with George as finance chair to go over a preliminary draft, and then Julie, if you're interested, you can join us too.
Wonderful.
Okay, so that'll be coming your way soon.
So if anybody has input or comments that Gwen needs, you have 2 weeks.
Pretty much. If you have anything you want to tell me that you want to try to find money for, let me know.
And the October legislative meeting, next week's meeting will be held at Masonic Village, 7 o'clock.
In what room?
In the large assembly room.
Yeah.
So when you come in the front door, the main entrance, you turn to the right.
Make
and
it right.
it's a big glass walled room right
That's
there.
the clubhouse, am I right?
Yeah.
And Manager Patterson, would you update us on the Quaker Valley COG Route 65 Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement?
Sure. We talked about
Whoa.
this. Wow. We talked about this a couple months ago. The Quaker Valley COG Board has suggested that all the communities band together to adopt a resolution agreeing to work together on opportunities to improve the Route 65 corridor. So even though Aleppo doesn't touch it, we're part of the COG and our residents use 65 every day. So they want us all to get together because a unified group will help with grant applications. It could help us get more funding and different kinds of studies. So both our solicitors have reviewed the agreement and said that the language is fine. They're working on perhaps one slight tweak from what you have to what you may see next week, but they've checked both versions, and whichever version is in place next Monday is the one that you guys will approve, and that's that. So they have 8 of the 14 communities on board so far, and looking to get the rest of us, this before Christmas, before it's.
What communities are not in? Rochester?
Oh, no, just the COG communities are
Oh, okay.
involved, yeah.
Any
So that'll
que-
be on the agenda for next week.
Any questions?
Does the draft that you're looking at in any way bind us to any particular program? What we might not be inclined to join, but we're outvoted, so to speak?
No, it leaves it very open to just cooperative work. And actually, one of our comments on it is that it doesn't necessarily have all the requirements of a binding agreement under the Intergovernmental Cooperation Agreement. Discussing that with the COG solicitor, their position is we just need something informal to get grant funding, and we think it's sufficient for that. But it's not obligating any sort of commitment for financial obligations or any specific program sign-on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I think you'll find at the last page of your packet, a letter from the Aleppo Township Authority.
Do you want to do the Comcast, or do you want to go in different order?
Oh, I skipped that. Well, we'll stay with Aleppo for now.
Okay.
Would you like to explain this request, Gwen?
Sure. So, for several years, the authority has been discussing the Deer Run pump station, and the design is one that they felt was not, there were issues with the pumps in that pump station, and they wanted to redesign it so that they could get different pumps that were more locally sourced rather than from Germany, where it was taking 9 months to a year to get repairs to pumps and things like that. So a couple of years ago, they had a contractor, a consultant come in and look at redesigning that pump station that's down here on Deer Run Road for a different design that would use a different kind of pump. So they decided they wanted to pursue, the authority decided they wanted to pursue that. So they went out, they got submitted a grant application and got a nice chunk of funding for that project. The original thought was it was gonna be like $550,000, and they got funding for almost 400 and some thousand. And they came to this board a couple months ago and requested a contribution from the sewer bond funds to make up the difference between the grant and the actual project cost. So this board granted, agreed to give them $84,000 toward this project from that one sewer bond account that is segregated in our system. They have looked at the numbers and realized that there's, even with that, the combination of that grant and the $84,000 still leaves them $250,000 short in the cost to do the project based on the bids that came in. And so they met and discussed and submitted a letter to the township requesting that the township consider splitting that $250,000 with them so that they would fund 125 and that the township sewer bond fund would fund the other 125.
In addition to the 84?
Yes.
So 125 plus the 84?
Yes.
209.
Yes.
Okay.
And the request was caused by,
The bids came in higher than expected.
What's the definition of the assistance would delay the need to raise sewer treatment? What I'm reading that is despite doing this, they're still going to increase sewage rates, just not this second.
Yes, so they have cash reserves that they could fund this $250,000 themselves.
Yes.
But doing that would deplete their cash reserves so much, their contingency fund so much, that the engineer would recommend then a rate increase this year in order to start building those reserves back up. Their letter states that if the township were to provide part of that funding, they wouldn't have to raise the rates this coming year. Rates may be raised in future years just based on inflation and general costs going up, but it would stave off.
But not still a need to replenish those reserve funds despite us supplementing them.
Right, it would put that off for a bit. It would put off any kind of rate increases for a bit, is what they're saying.
and the money that we would be drawing from is generated how?
It is generated, it's called, in our system, it's called the sewer bond fund, and so the sewer customers pay a debt service amount every month. That is the authority collects it and it comes to the township. They give us a check every month for that month's collections of the sewer bond, because the bonds are held in the township's name. So twice a year I have an account that's just for that, we take that and we pay that year's bonds that are due twice a year. And so over time, that fund has grown a little bit, and has a little bit of reserves in it, and so, but it can't be used for things other than sewer related things. We can't just stick it in our general fund, it's just for sewer. So that's where it would come from. It wouldn't come from the general fund, tax revenues, it would not come from.
So the general policy has been, it's in everybody's interest to use the money to its best purpose. So we called our bond underwriter and asked if we would be refinancing the bonds in 2025. The answer is no. Is it appropriate to pay down the principal now? The answer is no. So applying this money to assist the authority would be the best use of money currently. And our very conservative manager tells me that the balance in the fund from which this would be withdrawn does not make her nervous.
Very conservative.
So there.
Don't take too much.
And then investing in that allows for cheaper bars, quicker turnaround time. I understand it's not raising rates, but
I think it would allow them to not drain their reserves so that in case of some kind of sewer incident, they would have some funding
Right.
to do repairs and things like that.
So Gwen and I talked earlier, and I think for the township's benefit, it would be good to have a written document from the engineer discussing why this rate is for why this increase is being requested, and also to give us a project timeline. When is the grant expected, when's the project going to be completed, et cetera. Anything else you would like to know before we vote on this next week?
Are we sure it's not gonna go up again?
Well, the bids, we, sure the bids
I
are
mean,
not,
are
the
we-
bids, they did award the bids.
Okay.
So it's, they already, the authority already, they received the bids and they awarded the bids, so, yes. We think this
Good
is
to know.
it. We think this is it.
The bids came in substantially higher than anticipated, which is why I think it's good for the authority's engineer to give us a document
Yeah.
that says, this is the reason, I think,
Yeah.
and then also to tell us about the project timeline itself, including cash flow. Because I don't think the grant is currently in hand.
But if this is an extended project timeline, we could be dealing with another increase in product, et cetera.
Right.
So it would be nice to know that it's gonna get done within the next.
So will you request that from the engineer?
Yes. And I will put it on the agenda for next week unless for some reason we're unable to get the information you are seeking, and then we'll just push it to November.
Any other questions?
From an accounting perspective, where does the increase in value from the new assets get recognized?
I would have to ask the auditor how.
I think it's on our balance
It's on
sheet.
our yeah, I'd have to ask him how that would, if that would show up or if it would balance out.
I
with
mean, it
depreciation.
should show, I would think it should show up on our balance sheets, it's our asset.
Yeah, we do. I'll check, I'll make sure that the auditor's aware of this change so that it would show that way.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so backing up, the Comcast franchise agreement renewal process.
So several months ago, the board agreed to join with other COG members to hire a co-in-law group to negotiate the Comcast franchise agreement renewal, which comes up, it depends, sometimes it's 5 years, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 10, depending on what the cable companies are offering municipalities as a term of agreement. So we're in that group with several other COG municipalities, and one step in the process is for the boards to hold a public hearing to allow residents to come in and express any concerns they may have about Comcast service delivery. It's not about personal bills or cost of cable bills or I want this channel and it's not. It's if, a lot of times, the way that it was explained to me, if there are areas that are not served by Comcast and people want to come in and say, you don't run lines in my area and I want lines, or if there are continued outages, that something like that. It's just a way to collect a list of concerns that people may have that then those attorneys are gonna take to Comcast as part of the negotiations. So we have to advertise a public hearing, but we do not have to have a court reporter. They said that the minutes from this meeting will suffice, and it's basically a way to collect those concerns, if anybody has any, and then I'll get them back to that attorney. So that will be scheduled for November, just because we figured it would be easier to have it here in our building than necessarily at Masonic, because they probably have different people set up in individual homes.
Has Verizon ever offered a franchise agreement?
We do have a franchise agreement with Verizon.
Both.
Yes, we have both. Both cable providers offer services in Aleppo.
Good. Any other questions? Have we received any communication from citizens?
I do not have anything as of today. I do have one other topic.
Or you might still get something from NBS, I'm not sure yet, but we were asked to fill out a relatively detailed form on the communications service up there, primarily the cell phones.
Okay,
So
okay.
I filled it out, but I haven't seen what came in or how well it was responded or anything yet.
Okay, yeah, for it. I had one other thing that I wanted to mention, that didn't make it onto the agenda, but we're not gonna vote, just gonna mention it. The AC and heating unit on the top of this building here that serves this room has completely died. It was noisy and spitting, and now it's dead. So we got some quotes last year from several companies, and then we went back to some of them and got a new updated quote for a slightly smaller unit that's up there now, because it really only serves this room, so it was a large unit for this room, well, those rooms, those closets. And so it was budgeted for this year in the 2024 budget. The newest quote is $12,179, and that's for includes the crane to come and set it on the roof and everything. And then we're also interested in getting a service agreement with them to service all 3 units that we have, because this building has 3 individual heating and cooling units. And so it was budgeted, so I'm happy to put it on the agenda for next week, just for you guys to formalize the vote to go ahead and do it. But it's not a new expenditure of mine.
This is the one that excludes Patty from controlling temperature.
It does,
right?
it takes, yes.
What did we budget?
Well, in that category, we had budgeted $35,000 to cover this unit and a potential sewer line replacement
Right.
underneath the building. So we're, knock on all the wood, we don't think that's gonna have to happen this year, so we'll be well under for this year. That line runs under my office, so I took a plate not to replace it.
Any other new business or any other agenda items? We're adjourned.